Everyone, hope you're all well, and thanks very much for the support with my videos, the likes, shares and comments. I can just catch in my distance there an egret, just in the distance on the banks of the River Dodder here in Dublin. This comes all the way down from Capure in the Wicklow Mountains and travels all the way down through Tallaght, Templeogue, Rathfarnham, down through here into Artry, and it powered a lot of mills back in the day. So the egret is just enjoying its time along the river here, and then it joins the River Liffey at the Grand Canal Basin, that region of Dublin. Today I want to speak about immigration and the huge profits that are being made from this huge industry that it's become in Irish society. Because over the last number of days we've seen more protests in and around Clonmel. It's a town of over 17,000 people, and there were plans to put 82 modular homes for international protection applicants on a site. And this site or field has been used by Irish travellers for many years, for over 35 years I think, for their horses as well. So there is a huge amount of protest down there. A lot of it's not being discussed. I've seen an English private company guarding it. This is just crazy stuff going on. It's absolutely chaotic. And again, very lack of public consultation, lack of democracy, lack of community sovereignty, and all these big issues as well. But again, we've seen a huge population growth over the last year in Ireland. Over 3.5% our population has grown with the advent of the migration chaos created by the war in Ukraine. Well, over 120,000 Ukrainians have come, and now the expectation is at least 30,000 this year will arrive, probably well in excess of that, I'd imagine, because you can see recently I've done videos down around Leeson Street, and you can see the whole barricade nature of the city all on the Grand Canal. And over the last number of days more barricades were erected on Leeson Street Bridge as well. Now this comes on the back of the chaos that's created because the big bosses are profiting in Irish society from it. And of course the Irish political classes bow down to the whims of the big bosses and whatever they need to do in terms of cheap labour and exploiting many people as commercial property owners as well. And we've seen that with landlords for many years, exploiting a lot of migrant workers and Irish workers also as well, in the context of our housing disaster. And also we've seen a push now with the Irish government to have a long-term plan and create all this centres in various parts of Ireland. Now there is more protests, and have been protests over the last number of weeks at Thornton Hall, which was a site which was earmarked for a prison. There's up to 1,000 people are going to be located there. There are serious issues because of lack of consultation and lack of services. And also more derelict buildings, derelict hotels are being pushed as well. But this was never a push. Actually, a hotel, I think in Sallins in County Kildare also as well. And this has never been pursued or pushed with any vigour before for the homeless disaster we've had in Ireland for years. It's never been pursued for the over 14,000 people in so-called emergency accommodation in Irish society. But it favours the rich and who's pushing the immigration chaos in the context of profiting from it and looking for their cheap labour as well. And you can see with your recent European elections, it's more of the same. It's more yes men for the political establishment, and it's more of the same nonsense that's going to continue with these people going off to serve their time in the European Parliament as well. We've seen that in Dublin, for instance, with people like Aidan O'Riordan, Regina Doherty. We've seen it with Lynn Boyle and Barry Andrews also as well, and then Nina Carberry, for instance, in Fine Gael, celebrity candidate that I think is top of the poll in the Midlands North constituency of Ireland as well, or Ireland East I think it's called. And not to mention down south where you have Billy Kelleher and people like Sean Kelly as well. More of the same political establishment. And what is it with the Irish psyche that keeps returning these people? Of course people vote with their class interests, of course there's huge amounts of apathy, but people have to organise and build a huge opposition to what's going on and build a credible alternative to what's really going on, that puts the needs of people first, not something that's going to just represent the needs of the big business and the oligarch class here in Ireland moving forward as well, because we've seen the pressure that's been pushed on services, hospitals, with trolley chaos, over 1 million people on hospital waiting lists. We've seen it with the housing chaos, 300,000 people, so-called hidden homeless. Huge amount of young people are now emigrating because they can't afford to live in their area, and this has an added impact to the immigration chaos of pushing up accommodation costs, which again, pressure on services. Who does that benefit? Benefits the landlords again, it benefits the rich and the wealthy and the property owners again. And who pays for it? All of us, through our national debt, when more is saddled onto the national debt and more misery as well. Currently there's €44,000 for every man, woman and child in Irish society, and this has been increased exponentially because of the immigration chaos and all these vulture funds and huge Irish and international vulture funds, and international property owners are making a fortune from this, not to mention the bosses also as well. And this benefits the radical free marketeers in terms of bringing cheap labour in as well, which is very important to know, and it's not being remarked upon by any of the political opposition. But of course, the opposition, and even some of those who claim to be in opposition, are the ones that don't talk about this, because this is a big issue about the cheap labour, which has to be spread far and wide to what's really going on. Because I've spoken about it many times. I've spoken about IBEC lobbying against increasing the minimum wage from the minuscule €12.70. We've seen the central bank report looking for extra migrant workers. We've seen the profits going up in Irish society. 2 billionaires have the same wealth as 50% of the population. We've seen a huge subsidy now for employers, with the commercial property owners making a fortune. And who benefits? It's more saddled onto the debt, more austerity for the people here, more crucifying of our public and social services. But yet, it's who's benefiting? It's the commercial property owners and big employers as well, and the rich and wealthy. And these people who vote for them vote for their class interests. And a lot of people that's their core vote that constantly comes out and supports their class interests as well. So that's why we need to organise and build up a republic for the people, a people's republic, not a republic for the rich, bow down to the bureaucrats in Brussels every single time. And of course, with the added number of people coming in, this weaken's labour bargaining power for ordinary workers here as well, and the unions have just failed abjectly on this. And that's why people have moved away from a lot of the unions, because of their compromise with the big bosses, and this myth of social partnership they have with each other as well. Really grassroots unions led by ordinary members, not these top brass, out of touch, rich members of the political establishment. And again, this has been championed by big bosses, the migration issue, because who benefits? People like Zuckerberg for years Facebook as well, has been championing this, and it's dividing the working class and reinforces the oppressive system, which benefits the super rich and the 1% in society. And again, it creates more global wealth inequality in terms of more money being funneled to the top and more debt foisted on ordinary working class people, and making the conditions of the poor poorer. That's essentially how it works in terms of the drive, the erosion of people's rights. And there are people who are suffering because of this and being used as pawns in this crisis as well. And this is the reality of what's been going on, because they don't care about people and young families emigrating from Ireland. They don't care. They never cared about people on hospital waiting lists. They're not humanitarian, and this nonsense has to be completely dispelled, because it's purely economics for them, it's purely power, and it's purely an attack on the history and heritage and sense of identity and culture as well of countries as well, where they want to make this without any sovereignty, without any sort of emphasis on your nationality either, and issues around your basic involvement in the policy of the state. This is crucially important when you're looking at creating the policy of the state, which is Article 6 states that the policy of the state should be derived from the people of the state. And that's where grassroots democracy should come to the fore in terms of community sovereignty, where people are part of the decision-making process. That's what we need to build towards in Ireland now more than ever. We've seen that with the disastrous EU migration pact and who benefits. We've seen it with all the top-down policies and 70% of the legislation coming from the European Union, all at the behest of big lobbyists, big corporations who lobby, and all the legislation then is transposed into Irish legislation, and all the hands are tied of the political elites in the Dáil, who claim this comes from Brussels, we have to push this forward. And in the last couple of days I've seen Hungary now being fined because they're not willing to take migrants in as well, up to €200 million, and I think $1 million around that figure per day as well, because they're not abiding by these top-down laws as well. It's crucially important that people stand up for our local and community democracy, and that comes from the grassroots up, and that's where real change always happens, through grassroots organising, grassroots movements, not top down, not political leaders that come to our rescue. It's all of us working together in our communities up and down the country and stand up for what we're proud of as well. So I appreciate all the support. Please press subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thanks for all the support. And from the banks of the lovely Dodder this evening, as the egret still looking for food along the banks of the Dodder, which powered many mills along this river for many years as well, which is a beautiful part of Dublin. There was a canal back in 1244 that connected this river to the River Dodder also as well, which augmented that river, which was a fresh water supply the days after Viking Dublin and for many, many centuries. So it's crucially important to look after our local environments here like the Dodder and bring life back into it. And powered many mills as well, as I said. Dartry Dye Works was just down the road here as well. And further up there was a mill race as well with an old printing mill that was here as well. Provided great energy, employment as well. We've seen a huge erosion of all those things as well in terms of our local economies and local resources being portioned off to the European Union, and it's all about the big global interests, and which is destroying the whole fabric of society, destroying economies and destroying so many people's lives as power is being concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. And the rich essentially are getting richer off our backs, and that's how the immigration is working for them. Everything else is working for them. So it's not a moral argument, it's an economic argument for all of them, and it's about control as well and maintaining their power and trying to divide people along with this plan they're pushing forward as well. So listen, thanks a lot for the support of the videos again. As I said, please press subscribe, and from the Dodder, take care. Talk to you all soon. Slán, bye bye.